Good morning, and thank you for coming. My name is Nadine Chahine. I am the Arabic specialist at Monotype. Some of you know me as the Arabic specialist at Linotype. That's because we changed our name to take on the name of our mother company, Monotype, from the US. Like I said, so I'm the Arabic specialist at Linotype and Monotype. So as some of you may know, so Linotype has had a very long history in Arabic type design, Monotype as well. Our Linotype library remains, of course. It's one of the most popular libraries that you know in typography. Typefaces like Helvetica, Frutiger, Optima, Palatino, Universe, all of these bestsellers, they're all Linotype typefaces. They remain in the library, of course. And our linotype.com website also remains in action. But the corporate entity. So now when I speak, my badge says I am Monotype. So today, this session, we're going to be talking about fonts. And you're not going to be designing anything. It's not enough time. So I'm just going to show you sources of inspiration, some typefaces, and we're going to have a little bit of focus on digital typography, specifically for web fonts. I think that would be of most interest to the audience here. So this is not a type design workshop. It's more how we use fonts and what we can do and how do we select the right typeface rather than how do we sit down and we design a typeface. So the other thing is that the presentation is roughly, or the session today is roughly 3 parts. So first part, we're going to actually look at calligraphy, even though we're going to be discussing digital type. But I want that we start off from an equal platform of understanding what is our visual heritage, what are the different styles that we can use, and then based on that, look at type design today, what sort of typefaces we have now, how they reference calligraphic styles, but how they also reference the way we live today. That is the second question, the second aspect. And then the third one, I'm just going to speak very quickly about legibility studies. So in October, I finished my PhD for testing the effect of complexity of the script, of the Arabic script on legibility. So I'll talk a little bit about that. The way we'll do this is that this is a super informal session. So you can ask me questions as we go along, because we will have different topics. So I don't want that we leave everything to the end. So this is why it's more workshop rather than a talk. You can just raise your hand if you have any questions. I'll try to make sure that our timing is not derailed and we spend on one aspect too much. I will be showing you some interesting websites that might be relevant for you in your work when we speak a little bit about web fonts. That's part of the Arabic typography today. And that will be it. So feel free to ask me questions. Now is a good time. And so I'm just going to start now. OK? So no questions yet. Haven't said anything. So when we think of Arabic fonts and when we look at fonts in general, when I studied in Beirut, so my education background, I studied graphic design in AUB, and then I have an MA in type design from Reading, and then the PhD from Leiden University. So when I studied at AUB, and I graduated in the year 2000, and now you guys know how old I am. So don't tell anyone. So when I was at AUB, we had lousy fonts all over the place. It was AXT Manal and Muna and Fashkul and Fadi and like that, those typefaces. So and every time we wanted to work on something, when you design in English, there's all the nice typefaces. You come to design in Arabic, it's all shitty, and so that's how I got interested in type design. That this cannot be that we have such good solutions for English and Latin, basically, but nothing for Arabic. But when we look today at Arabic, we have to understand that we have cases where we need typefaces that are modern, that communicate with how we live today, but also that are also classic. So I'm going to be showing you a range of different styles. We should not forget who we are, but we should also be focused on the future. So when we look at type design and when we look at our references, it's always good to understand where we start, what the rules are, and then go ahead and break the rules in case we want to break them. So, and that's sort of what I do. That's why we start with the calligraphy. So so for the people in the audience, because this is an interactive session, I want to also know a little bit about you guys. So I know 2 people in the audience. You guys don't have to explain. But for everybody else, so who's coming from a design background? Okay, and this would be sort of like graphic design, web design. Okay, web. Okay, and the rest is web developers, programmers. Okay, okay. Is anybody in branding? Okay, advertising. Okay. Well, okay, good. So, so basically, how many of you are, familiar with calligraphic styles in Arabic? Sort of. Okay, 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 good. So what I'm going to show you now is sources of inspiration. So these are, you will recognize most of them because you've seen them on wedding invitation cards, you've seen them on the, yaftat, you've seen them on some menus somewhere. But it's important to understand where we start and what we can use for reference. So, and I will go through quickly, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the calligraphic styles, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So, when we're looking at the history of Arabic calligraphy and the typefaces that we have available, the early Kufi, what we call the early Kufi, or the Kufi of the early manuscripts, so Kufi al-Masahif al-Ula. This would be the styles that were roughly from the first 300 years after Hijrah, so that's up until the 10th century. These styles are characterized by a very strong horizontal baseline. So what you see here, there is this strong horizontal emphasis. There is a strong contrast between the vertical elements and the horizontal elements. It is very bold. The counters, which is the insides of the letters, are a little bit small, but you feel this contrast between the vertical element and the horizontal element. The way the letters sit side by side is roughly standard. So it's more or less horizontal stacking, like one next to the other. The reason why this is important is that when we look at Arabic calligraphic styles, we need to understand how letters are built and how words are built. And the logic of how words are built, this is if they are sitting the letters side by side or on top of each other. This changes in other styles. And when we come to design, this is important. The interesting thing in this sample here, and this is from, I think, 8th century, is that this looks very modern. And when we are looking for a source of inspiration, when we're thinking of modern typefaces, Kufi is an excellent source to start with because it has a simplicity of the design that makes it a good source of inspiration. So you will see later on when I am showing my own typefaces, you will see that there's a lot of Kufi influence there. And it's a paradox that script styles that were common in the 8th century and the 9th century are actually the most modern looking of everything that we have in terms of calligraphic heritage. But yeah, there's a lot of playfulness in here. What you can also see here, for example, is the bent Kufi. So this is Eastern Kufi as well, sometimes called. Here you can see the mannerism is a little bit more enhanced, more emphasized. We still have the horizontal baseline so that the letters are very much sitting on a straight line. We still have the contrast of the vertical elements with the horizontality. Now we have a lot of contrast between the thick parts and the very thin parts. This style is still commonly seen today. So the first one, the early Kufi, you don't really see anymore. But this one you still see every once in a while. Again, it's a good reference for inspiration. It doesn't mean when we look at these styles that when we're going to design, they're going to go and they're going to look like this. What we look at these is to understand what is the proportion of letters and how do they connect, and then based on that, be inspired and design something new. The important reason why we look at these even when you're not type designers, is there are certain connotations that come from different styles, and understanding these connotations makes it easier for you to utilize the right typeface. So some typefaces are more masculine. So when you're looking at the Kufi styles, they are more masculine. Some typefaces like the Nastaliq, which we'll see later, are more feminine. That's why we use them on wedding cards, so wedding invitations. So there are connotations per styles, and it's good to understand how these are being used. Now we go more to the western part of the Arab world, so the Maghribi and the Andalusi. The nicest thing about presenting in Lebanon is that I don't have to explain what Maghribi is. So usually when I present, I have to say, yes, this is Morocco. So it's nice, at least does everybody, so other than Martin, does everybody speak Arabic? Yes? Okay, good. So Maghribi is Moroccan. so this is coming from the western part. So Andalusi, this would be from Spain, and the Maghribi is from Morocco. And what you see over here is that this logic of having letters sit side by side is still maintained. However, the writing tool is different, and here is with a round brush. So it's a little bit more round, and the treatment of the letters becomes different. Here, we're still with the Maghribi, and what you see over here is a little bit more movement. This is becoming more organic. So the movement is more complex. There's more rounded forms. It starts to, lots of overlaps between words, lots of swashes. This is Quranic Maghribi. So if you pick up a Quran that has been written in Morocco, this would be the kind of style that you see in it. And again, it's written with a rounded brush. You will see that the horizontal baseline is maintained. The contrast between vertical and horizontal is still maintained. That's why some people still put this as part of the Kufi style. And basically, you have a lot of open counters, a lot of movement, lots of these rounded curves. So this style, for example, here in Lebanon, we don't really see at all. So this is really coming from the western part. You don't see it in the Gulf either. But there is an interesting aspect of how the letter forms are made. The stacking is not 100% horizontal, because you can see here the way they're jumping on top of each other. What you see over here, Sudani, so this I have never seen in real life, only in books. But again, like crazy contrast between thin and thick. And when you look at this, centuries old, but still there's something very modern in it. There's something very graphic in it, looking at these forms and the contrast in them. It doesn't mean that we need to design something that looks like this, but our understanding of what we can and cannot do in type design gives us the ability to play. Here, this will be more familiar to you guys. What we're looking at here is muhakkak. So muhakkak is one of the more popular styles in Arabic. It's easy to pick it out based on this very strong diagonal stroke. The emphasis is very strong. This is more for large sizes. That's why it's called Jalili al-Muhakkak, or sometimes Jalili al-Muhakkak, so large size. This would be the kind of thing, if you were to use today, would still be very classical. And here we're looking at Thuluth and Tawqi'a. And here we are with more organic styles. So basically, you do not see the horizontal baseline anymore. There is more movement in it. There is a different level of stacking. So some characters are diagonally placed together. Some things go on top or below one another. So that is quite interesting in that. And Thuluth, of course, you know, it's what you see in mosques on the, like if you go to Topkapi in Istanbul, and you have all of the big, nice lettering, so that would be in Thuluth. If you go to the Hagia Sophia, where the large 4 panels for the name of the Allah, Muhammad, all of those are also in Thuluth. So Thuluth would be the monumental style in Arabic that was designed for large sizes. So that would be the purpose of a Thuluth typeface. Thuluth is never meant for small sizes. What you see over here is Tawqi'a, again Muhakkak, and then Naskh. And Naskh here is interesting because this is what we're reading in. When you're looking at newspapers, at books, they are all set in Naskh. So the typefaces that we have today, most of them are coming from the Naskh background. When we're looking at the history of how Arabic typefaces came to develop, this style over here was too complex to be set into little metal pieces. even till today, it's still very complex to have a digital typeface to do this kind of behavior for you. We do have some, but it's quite complex to do. So what has happened is that this style was simplified so that it can be set in little metal pieces or digitally. And this is what gave us the typefaces that we see in newspapers and in books today. But this is where it's coming from. Rayhani and Taliq are other styles. Here, Taliq is also nice that we're in Arabic. Taliq, obviously, they're hanging together, so this starts to belong to the hanging scripts. This is going more, so here, again, the overlaps, the mannerism, the diagonal cascading styles. This is coming from the Ottoman styles, so Diwani, from the Diwan of the Sultan. This is, for example, not very common in Lebanon. However, the Diwani styles is quite common in logos. So like Duwayhi, I think, is Diwani style. And like lots of these nice, complex Arabic calligraphic logos are quite often in Diwani. If not Diwani, then they're usually in Thuluth. It's very pretty. But again, when we look at this is very classical in terms of style. So here we're starting to look again at Thuluth and Naskh together. This is from the Ottoman style. And you can see here we have companions in Arabic, companion styles. So, like when you're defining, so for the web developers here, when you're defining heading and body for the style sheets, or when you're a designer and you're picking a headline typeface and a body text typeface, this is a very modern approach of looking at type styles. However, we've had this for like 900 years already in the Arabic calligraphy. So we've had companion styles where one is meant for headlines in big and the other is meant for text in small, and we've had this since like the 12th century. So that's really cool. And you can see here, so Thuluth is for big, Naskh is for small. Yes?
The name of the headings,
so,
heading types and text types.
خط عناوين وخط نصوص. متون? متون? No, so I don't know what mutun is, but نصوص usually خط النص or خط النصوص, and then خط العناوين, so that would be the header. So Thuluth and Naskh would be one of the companion styles. Here we go more towards the east. So this is coming from the Persian calligraphic styles, part of the hanging scripts. So Nastaliq, Jali, Nastaliq. So this would be what you will get on wedding cards, right? So you guys have seen these styles before, right? They look familiar. So it's always nice to speak to an Arabic audience. I don't do it often. It's like half the presentation. I don't have to say. So yeah. Anyway. So designing for today. So this was a little bit of us looking at different calligraphic styles in Arabic. What you're going to see next is something that looks practically nothing like anything that we've seen up so far. But the thing is that when you're a type designer, you can either say, okay, this is the style and I'm going to do exactly the same, or you will say, okay, give me the function. Is it a typeface for reading on screen? Is it a typeface for a TV station? Is it a typeface for a newspaper? And then you design accordingly. And you look at the heritage that we have in typography today. What are we reading every day? What are we used to? And then see how can we improve it? How can we make it better? So what I'm going to show now is most of it is my design. And then there are some really cool typefaces that I like that are not mine. So that we'll be going through those. Yes? Yes.
Because when the proportion and everything, it's like you're exploring the tool you have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So for example, what you can say is I want to design a Naskh typeface, but instead of using a broad nib, I want a Naskh which is written with a ballpoint. So like the beak, alam al-beak, right? And this, you can follow then the classical structure, but the treatment of the letter is going to look different because it's written with a ballpoint. And I actually have a typeface like that, so we'll show it. And then sometimes what you can say is, so there's the tool, the actual tool. There's also the medium with which the typeface is going to be seen. So if this is a typeface that's going to be seen in a newspaper, and I will show another example, Then you have to take into consideration the printing process. Newspapers are printed very quickly. The ink spreads because the quality of the paper is so thin. So you have to make sure that your counters are very open. The treatment of the curves is very solid so that if there is any ink spread, it's not becoming too weak. So all of these considerations you have to take. So the medium, for example, if you're reading it on screen, if it's for example, a TV station, I did a typeface, modified one of my typefaces for Sky News Arabia. It was for the lower third, the ticker, with the headlines of the news today. And there is not a lot of vertical space. So you go in and then you do something called height restriction. You make the alif with hamza go shorter, the deep descenders, you pull them up. So you work on this so that it fits into what it's intended for. So you're always looking at the tool that created the typeface and the medium with which you are using it for. That's why when it's often that they say, what's your favorite typeface? It is not a valid question. It's for what? Because it could be an amazing typeface and it will look terrible when you put it on screen or vice versa. So it's always good to, it's like the Bible, no? The commandments of typography. What is the typeface being used for? Under what medium? There are typefaces that are versatile enough that you can use everywhere, in print, on screen. There are typefaces that are very delicate. If you use them, you need a kind of paper that does not spread too much. For example, if you look at a Bodoni typeface, any Bodoni, a Didon, you need paper that is not coated. Because if it's coated, it looks too sharp than, if it's for body copy. So things like these, there's lots of delicacies as to how we work with type. And the medium and all of that is relevant to it. So I'm going to show some of my designs. So this is Kufia. So this was my university project, the MA project that I did at Reading. Kufia is the first typeface that is designed with both Arabic and Latin together by the same person at the same time with the full intention of harmonizing them. So this was designed beginning 2002 until 2003. And then they released in 2007, I think. So it was the first typeface to do that. The source of inspiration, and so I have a disclaimer. If I mention any political views, they're my own and not the representative of the company. So I forgot to say that at the beginning. So, for me, it was not okay that we have amazing typefaces in Latin and shitty typefaces in Arabic. And I have to apologize also for the foul language. So, and then when you put them side by side, the Arabic part looks weak, it looks badly designed, and it's almost a reflection of who we are in comparison. And that view is not acceptable, that when we are relating what is Arabic to what is Latin, that the Arabic is inferior. And this is not okay, whether it is in a political view, in a cultural view, or a typographic view. So in all cases, is unacceptable. So what I wanted is to have equality between the two. And to do that, what you need to understand is that it is okay that they are different, that the Latin can stay Latin, and the Arabic stays Arabic without having to compromise anything. We do not need to Latinize the Arabic in order for it to work next to a Latin. Is not necessary. We do not need to take serifs from the Latin, stick them on the Arabic in order to make the Arabic work with a serif typeface in Latin. It's not necessary. What we need to understand is the basic logic with how typefaces are built, and then apply that logic to both. So it's not about the decoration, it's not about the shoes and the hat, because that's what serifs are. It's about the structure, and that's the backbone. And that's what we need to look at. So when I designed Kufia is based on the early Kufi. So it looks very modern, but its reference, its source of inspiration is the early Kufi. So that's like from the 8th century and the 9th century. And what you do is you go back and you look at those forms, and then you see what kind of elements can I bring in and what needs to be changed in order for it to be readily accepted by the public. So when you're looking at it, it doesn't look like it's too new or like, oh my God, I've never seen this typeface before, or this style before. It reads quite easily, but it brings in a little bit of naskh. It brings in a little bit of the early Kufi in order to make a hybrid that would work today. This kind of typeface, because of where it's coming from, is something that you would use in a more cultural setting. It's not a typeface that you would use for techie kind of applications. It's not a typeface that you would use for large headlines. This is coming from It's a text face. It's meant to be used in paragraphs. And this is where it's coming from. So when you look at the Latin and the Arabic, I don't know if this is too small for you. Can you guys see it well? Yeah. So when you look at the two, there is harmony between the Arabic and the Latin, and they're supposed to sit together on the same page without having any contrast. Not contrast, without having any fight. So they can coexist, but they don't have to be the same. And this is as much a cultural, political statement as much as it is a design statement, that it is okay and it is possible to have equal dialogue with entities that are very different from us, as long as we understand and accept that we are different and it's okay to be different. So, and this, once you look at things like that, then it becomes easy. And one of the things that, going back to design, it's important in Arabic is that you have words like these, where the Latin is nested inside Arabic, but it doesn't jump out. It belongs with the rest of it. So it blends in completely. And the point is that in Arabic, we often have, especially if it's a technical magazine or application, you will always have words in English that are coming in. And you don't want it to jump out. If you want it to jump out, you make it in bold, you make it in a different color. But just by the selection of the typeface, you need to start from an equal footing. And then as a graphic designer, you go in and you decide, okay, no, I want to give it more emphasis or not. But as a type designer, I'm supposed to give you a solution that where both are equal. So yeah, so this is it. And the thing that you like, so there is no serifs on the Arabic, but there are serifs on the Latin. So so Fawzi, sitting over there, one of the two people I know in the room, we share a hatred for Frankenstein Arabic, where the logos, where there's like cut up Latin letters put together to make an Arabic word. This is horrible. It sucks. It's Frankenstein in every possible sense. It's getting popular. It was very popular in Dubai when I was teaching there, so that was like 2004 or so, but then they're sort of gotten out of it. I still see it here a little bit in Lebanon also, but we have to make more of an effort. We cannot accept Frankenstein's, Arabic has to be Arabic, and it's possible to have modern-looking letters in Arabic without having to slap serifs left and right. So, and yeah, anyway, so that's that.
Just a question.
Yes.
About the copy. Was
Yes.
it created for print?
Yes. Yeah, this was for print. So you could use it on screen, but I've seen it in tests on for websites, and I don't feel so comfortable with it. It's more for print, more magazine-y kind of thing, cultural identity, like cultural projects, corporate identity, that kind of work. So Frutiger Arabic is was my next project. So I was actually telling Martin yesterday. So Frutiger Arabic started as a project for AUB. So after I finished the MA, and I don't usually say this, but because we're in Lebanon and we are here, so so I don't know if you guys know West Hall in AUB. So it's where the activities happen. And they had a new signage system where they were going to use Frutiger, and they invited me to create a typeface that is a companion. At that time, I had already been offered a job at Linotype, and Linotype owns the license, right, to Frutiger. So I emailed the boss and was like, Bruno, can I do this? And he's like, yes, but let's get the approval from Adrian Frutiger, the original designer. And I was like, okay. But in the meantime, I had designed something for AUB, and it was theirs. And that typeface I called Jannah, because AUB compared to the rest of Beirut is heaven. So all the green stuff. So yeah, so that was the predecessor. So Frutiger Arabic, like it's from the soil of Beirut. That's where it comes from. So the design is a hybrid between Kufi and Naskh. So it brings in elements from Kufi, the horizontal stacking, letters side by side, but it brings in some of the fluidity that you find in Naskh, some of that hand movement, so that it's not too stiff. Because Kufi usually is quite geometric and stiff, and if you want to read it, it's like somebody's beating your eye with a stick. It's too much. Kufi was meant to be for headlines. It was never meant to be for long text. So a pure Kufi typeface is too heavy on the eyes. So what you need to do is put in a little bit of an organic feel so that it goes softer on you, and that the patterns that you are creating are not too sharp and rough on the eye. So this is what Frutiger Arabic does. Like if you look at the ayn here, this is not what you would typically find in a Kufi ayn. When you look in at the actual curves, there's a bit of movement in it. There is soft contrast. The modulation is similar to what you get in the Latin. And primarily, it was a typeface meant for signage, because that's what the original Frutiger was meant for. It's a signage typeface. It was designed for Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. So, so that's sort of the original design idea. We can use it for short pieces of text. We can, it's been all over the place now. So of all my typefaces, the Frutiger Arabic is the most popular. When I go to Dubai, it's fun because it's the typeface for Dubai Airport, and then I go out, and then it's the typeface for the Emirates NBD. And then so like it's all over Dubai because they advertise heavily, so it's really nice for me. I usually, well, not always. I sometimes tell people, like, every time I see one of my typefaces in use, it's like having a shot. So, so in Dubai, I'm drunk all the time. In Beirut, it's not so much. So I've seen 2 so far. So I was like, okay. But in Dubai, it's crazy because they advertise so much, and it's also the typeface for OSN, so the Orbit Showtime network. So I've actually literally sat down in meetings and I said, yes, as you can see in this project, and I point out of the window, and there's like a huge poster. So yeah, so it's nice. So I wasn't sure how popular it would be, but that's the thing when you design something, you're never sure how it would be received. But this one has been, it's worked out well, thank God. So it's quite fun to design. Like I said, you can use it in small pieces of text. So a paragraph like this is fine, but don't use it for a book. It's not meant for that kind of usage. This would be quite okay for websites if it's for like menus and things like this. For body copy, I still prefer that we use something else. So for branding, this would be quite well. And this is from Dubai, as you can see. So that's the intended target of a typeface like this. Jannah is the typeface that I mentioned, so that's the predecessor of Frutiger Arabic. That's the typeface that you see for the signage at West Hall. It was actually, like, the design was okay, but it was a bit too geometric, and Frutiger has a very soft feel to it. It's a humanist design. It's not based on geometry. There's an organic feel to it. And so Jannah was a little bit too geometric in that sense. So it turned out that another typeface by Adrian Frutiger, Avenir, would actually work better as its companion. So that's why Jannah has the Latin of Avenir. And Jannah, again, is meant for either headline or very short pieces of text. Is not meant for you know, a lot of text. So both Frutiger Arabic, Jannah, I'm not sure, but some of the typefaces that I'm showing now, they've already been used. So Frutiger Arabic has been used for a TV station. So if we're looking on screen, it's been used in cars, so navigation systems in cars. So I can't say which cars we have, but they're a lot. So because we're under NDA, we can't say, we can't, no? Anyway, so so look for the Arabic operating system in the next generations of cars, and you'll see. So so its use on low-resolution devices is quite good. That's why I wanted to mention this. So for mobile devices, for navigation screens, this kind of design works quite well because it's very simple in construction, very open counters. So the insides of the letters are open. So if you're designing for mobile and you're restricted with a with the space, if you're designing for a TV station, and again, you need something that would work well in small sizes, this would be the kind of typeface that you would use. Web design as well, menu items, all of that. These kinds of typefaces go well with that because they have very low contrast, so it's almost monolinear in design, and because the counters of the letters, the insides, are quite big, and that makes it applicable for low resolution. Yes, yeah. So if you, I mean, it depends what you want to use it for, but basically all you have to do is send us an email, or just, if it's for normal desktop use, you don't even have to email us, you just get it off the website. And if you need it for web, we have also a license for that. If it's a bit more complex, like you need to use it for an app, we have a license. So for that, you would need to send us an email, and then we sort it out. But yeah, all the licenses we manage. Yeah. For an app, we will have, so the license from the website is for normal desktop usage. If you want to embed the font inside an app, you have a special license for that. So it's different, because it's a different kind of usage. I mean, usually it's not in the font specifications, but if you need advice on this, you can always send us an email, and then we say like, yeah, this is too small or this is too big, and we do this with our customers. So like when we were designing for OSN, I was actually sitting inside the TV station, and we were looking at this, you know, at the ticker and all of that, and we're like, okay, maybe give it more space, and then, you know, so there's things we can do to advise to get to the best solution. So it's no problem. So Palatino Arabic, so this is the one that I was referring to, like a ballpoint, classical naskh structure. So the structure is very classical. No, not the Palatino sound, this is Palatino. Okay, yeah, sorry. So this is the first one. So this is not with a ballpoint, this is the pure traditional naskh typeface, is a companion to Palatino. So what you can see is there are some exceptions, like the counters are still quite big. I can't seem to make small counters. It's against my religion, so the only religion I have. So so basically it's open counters, but very classical in proportion. So when I was designing, I was looking at references, and then I designed it, and I thought I finished, and then I remembered that we have like a point system from Ibn Mukhla. It's the Rhombic Dot System. So basically the read when it makes a dot, and then you use that as a measurement. And I did, and it turned out that my proportions were not so classical. I followed the Rhombic Dot System, and suddenly the design looks much better. So it's quite interesting for us that when we go and we design something classical, we actually have a really nice set of measurements that we can use as inspiration and for reference as well. Ibn Mukhla, which one? Rhombic Dot. Yeah, so Rhombic is RHOMBIC, and then dot. The counter, like if you look at the, now I can look at the Ain, and then look at the Waw, and then look at the Mim. Usually there's nothing inside. Usually it's closed. It's just a blob. And this one you actually see how the the pen moved, and you still leave a white space in the middle. So the reason I leave them open is that. Otherwise, you have these blobs, these ink blobs on screen or in print, and it's uneven when you're reading a bit of text and you have these black thingies, jumping all over the place. And so I prefer to leave it open. This helps for low resolution as well, in case you need to read it in small sizes, so that the structure of the typeface is well defined enough so that it doesn't lose form. Otherwise, if you look at the middle ghain and the middle fe, if the counter is so small, or if there's no counter at all, in small size, they start to look the same. So what you need to do, if there's not enough pixels to make one look circular and the other triangular, it's too close to each other. So the clearer the design, the more open the counters, the more legible it usually is. Yes. Yes. I mean, if it's very low resolution, eventually, yeah. If it's like 5 pixels high, yeah, everything disappears by that. So, but that is where your decision comes in to decide, no, the typeface does not work at this size. I mean, you look at it. If it doesn't read well anymore, then you just don't use it and use something else. But that's why such a typeface would not be recommended for a mobile device, because there's too many details in it. Something more like the Frutiger Arabic would be better because it is simpler in construction, and its counters are by nature much bigger. So when you go small, you still have a little bit of a white pixel in the middle to keep it. Yeah, but it depends which Arabic fonts. But because I am in agreement that most of the Arabic fonts that we have are terrible. So yes. Yeah. No. Even the ones that come with a system, so like the Microsoft system fonts. The new ones are better, but the old ones are... Yeah. No, they've improved in the last like 6 or 7 years. They've released some really nice Arabic typefaces, Adobe as well. But the old ones, the simplified Arabic, and the one with Times and Lucida and yeah. No. The system fonts in Arabic for web are a catastrophe. In every direction, for every purpose and sense, it's a catastrophe. And yeah. No, but all of these typefaces are available for web. So all of these, we have them as web fonts as well. So I'll get to that also.
But does the computer
Anti-aliasing? Usually, yeah, it's something in the rendering system. So like a Mac will render differently from a PC. And even on a Mac, you have applications that will use a different rendering engine other than the operating system. So what you need to do is look at what is rendering and what is not, and yeah, and like if you are on Windows, if you have clear type or not. So
Browsers also.
yeah, also. So you have like, yeah, but that's the dilemma, obviously. But what you need then is a typeface that is sturdy enough that would survive all of these. That's usually what you need to look for. So yeah, so Palatino Arabic is a very classical in design. This is not recommended for use on screen. This is more for text in print. You can see here also sitting with the Latin. What you notice here is that the rhythm is much more fluid, dynamic than the Latin. And it's on purpose because the Latin is a very classical text face and the Arabic is a very classical text face. And when we're sitting down to read a book, it's more important that you are authentic to the function than to trying to make the Arabic and the Latin look the same. When we design with a Kufi, it's easier for us to get the Arabic and Latin to have the same rhythm because the structure of a Kufi is very modern. So we are able to have that balance. But with Naskh, it's very hard to do that, and especially if it's with classical Naskh. So the decision here was to go for classical Naskh. Therefore, the rhythm is going to be different. They can coexist. They are used at the same point size, same weight, but it's just not the same rhythm. Palatino Arabic is exactly the same structure, but here it's written with a ballpoint pen. So this is low contrast. And this, funnily enough, this typeface looks really good when you need to write slang. So usually when we write slang in Arabic, it looks terrible because the typeface, it just does not mix with the typeface. But this one seems to work well in that kind of situation. This you can use on the web. So if you, I forgot the name of it. There's a website using Palatino as a text face, and it's actually rendering quite well. So with Palatino Arabic, because of the contrast, it does not look nice as a web font, but Palatino Arabic is actually really cool as a web font. So it looks quite well on screen. Just give it enough size, and it looks quite okay. This is how it looks like in text. Usually, if you have a typeface like this, and if you want to use it on the web, give enough space between the lines so that it has some breathing space, and that would improve the legibility of it. I mean, it looks as if it was handwritten, but obviously it wasn't. No, I mean, but it looks like it because it has no contrast, it has soft edges. Yeah. I mean, usually the default, typographically, the default is 20%. So you would have the 120, basically. So if it's 10 points, you would have 12 points.
For Arabic, for those ones, are you still recommending the same?
I would always give it more. So the thing is, like, you have to be very careful with the Arabic fonts because the system fonts, the Arabic is designed to be very small on the body. That's why when you have 10 points in Latin, you need like 13 points in Arabic because it was drawn as a program very small on the M. So if you're a web developer, you measure by M. So that the optical size of the font is very small on the M. With these fonts, the Arabic and Latin is meant to be the same size. 10 points here is 10 points here. You don't need to change point sizes. All of these typefaces, they're all the same point size. So you just set 10 points for all. However, for Arabic, I would recommend 30%. If it's like this, like with Palatino Arabic, 30%, 35%, because there's so much movement that you need to give it a little bit of breathing space, and then it looks nicer. So yeah, usually it helps. For complex typefaces, give them a little bit of space. Also because with Arabic, we have all the dots, so there's a lot of noise. If you have the lines very close, and then the dots from the top are interfering with the dots from the lower one, and then it's just a mess. So it's just nice to give a little bit of breathing space. Also the linotype fonts, so all of our fonts, because we draw them on the same size like the Latin, the leading is tight because there is more things happening with the Arabic. So I would give a little bit more extra space, definitely. So this is from a visit to Herman Zapf. He's the designer of Palatino and Zapfino and Palatino and he's like one of the two gods of typography. So I was working with him on the design. This is also his wife. So this is at their home in near Frankfurt in Germany, in Darmstadt. Herman Zapf. So yeah, he's the designer of Optima also. Yeah. No. No, the Nokia font, there's 2 Nokia fonts, and each by different companies. So I don't know if that's the new one or the old one. But he has not designed for Nokia. No. He's German, yeah. So the Neue Helvetica Arabic was one of the most difficult that I've worked on. When you take Helvetica and you say, I want to make an Arabic for it, it's hard. So this is not easy. What you had to do is like take out the pen influence to make it very neutral, because that's what the design is supposed to be. So Neue Helvetica is the number 2 in our the popularity of our Arabic fonts. This one we've used for Sky News Arabia, that we've modified it for them, and it's also popping up. There's the bank on the corner of Bliss Street, I think Bank Beirut wa Masr or something wa Masr. Yeah, I don't remember. No, I think it's blue. But anyway, so on the corner of Bliss Street at the beginning, so they also use it. That's one of the 2 that I saw. And so basically, this one, it's also not a book face. It's something that you would use for low resolution or for short pieces of text. So we've used it for TV. We've also used it for car navigation systems. So this one is in at least 2 different makes of cars. And the design is, again, a hybrid between Kufi and Naskh. But again, the fact that it is monolinear, it makes it applicable for low resolution and for web fonts, for menus, things like this. This is where you would use it. And this is how you see it in text. The next Arabic is one of my latest designs. So this is very techy looking. Definitely not for text, only very short pieces of text. With this one, it's almost a pure Kufi, almost. And when you go very technical in drawing, it becomes easier to make it match with the Latin because the pen movement is missing. So when things become all squarish, then all squares are looking similar, right? So this is sort of the effect you have over here. But I also forgot to mention that all of these fonts have different weights. So this one is available in 7. So I have the ultra light, and then the regular, medium, bold, black, whatever. And this kind of typeface you would use so in branding, in headlines, in short pieces of text, in menus. It's very compact in design, so it doesn't take up a lot of space, so it would be quite good for menus. Also available as web fonts. What you're looking for in this kind of typeface is the kind of usage where is a little bit technical, quite modern. So that would be the kind of look that we have over here. And the design in general is a Kufi. And here you can see. So this is already pushing it in terms of how we are using it. It gets to be a little bit too compact. So I would have it like up to 4 or 5 lines, not more. Yeah? So this is for short pieces of text. It's not recommended because what happens is when we are reading, the text makes the rhythm, and it's important that the rhythm is not too blocked. So if you're reading a typeface, this is more or less okay, but if you're reading a typeface that is very squarish or geometric, it's almost like you're driving, but you keep hitting the brakes. Every couple of seconds you're hitting the brakes. It's just not very smooth because it's just so geometric in nature. It's just the rhythm is not so comfortable. So what you need to do for long reading is to have something which is more relaxed. Universe Next Arabic is again the Arabic companion to Universe. So again, this is more Kufi. You can see the proportions. So this is really good for applications where you do not have a lot of vertical real estate. So you need a typeface that does not take up too much time, too much space vertically. So if you have menus where it is really tight, for a ticker on TV, this again is for short pieces of text, not for long reading. But also branding would work quite well for this. This is how it would be used in, so what a paragraph is looking like. And again, you can see here, I don't know if you're noticing the differences, like this is more sharp in terms of rhythm. It doesn't flow as smoothly as like Frutiger Arabic. This one is harder. If we have like a scale of this is Kufi and this is Naskh, and these are 2 unrelated calligraphic styles, and I usually make a hybrid between the 2 to get to something that would work. The Frutiger Arabic is in the middle. The Universe is closer to the kufi, and that is why the rhythm is harder. And that's why much shorter pieces of text. Sorry? Yeah, it is kufi. Yeah, mostly kufi. So the ones that I'm showing now, so all of these were my designs. I'm going to show some typefaces that are not from me, but I'm really excited about. So Shelia is by a Syrian designer called Ma'moun Sakal. He lives in Seattle. He usually works with Microsoft. This typeface has been used as the typeface for Burj Khalifa. So it's the signage typeface for Burj Khalifa and the entire complex. Gorgeous design, absolutely gorgeous. Also, I think 8 weights, available in 8 weights. This is the light, I think. And this is a kufi design. This is a pure kufi, almost a pure kufi. And you can see it has very condensed proportions. This is not the kind of thing that you would set long text in. This is more for short pieces of text. Again, amazing in branding. So for print and for screen. Yeah, yeah. If it is only, no, but you would use the thicker weights. Yeah, because we have light, thin, we have the regular bold black, so you would go for the thicker weights. And it has some quite open counters also. But there's something very special in this typeface, that it is actually many typefaces packed into one. So if you look at the Alif Lam, it's currently a ligature, but usually this is just a typographic feature. The normal font comes normal, and then you have 19 or 22 stylistic sets where you go in and just click on it and suddenly you have the ligatures, or you have swoosh characters, or you have different heights. So sometimes the T finishes in a circle, sometimes the T finishes in a straight line. Sometimes the height of the middle B is the same as the height of the initial B, sometimes it is lower, and you can decide which one you want. So it's actually several typefaces packed into one, and all of these features are in all of the weights. So it's really cool because it gives you, because sometimes you look at a typeface and you're like, I wish it was the other way. With this one, you can actually change. Do you guys know how to activate typographic features?
That was my question.
Right. So, so usually in InDesign, you would, if you,
This doesn't work on the web.
not 100%. So on the web, currently the support for OpenType features is minimal. We have now, no? With the we have sort of a plugin that will activate OpenType features even when the browser doesn't support OpenType features. So then you would need to go in the CSS style sheets and say, we want stylistic set number 2 or number 3 or something like that. I'm not sure how you'd actually specify it, but we'll talk more techie stuff in a little bit when we go look at web fonts. But basically, so that's for web. For normal design and InDesign, if you go to the character window, there's a little triangle on the side where it gives you like more options. One of them is OpenType. You hover over that, and then there are then even more options. And then one of them is the stylistic sets, and that's where you pick it. So if anyone is interested, we can also at the end open up InDesign, and I can show you. So so that's it for Shelia. So I can give you a demo of Shelia actually over on InDesign when we're done with this. Insan is another really cool typeface. This is like a modern version of a Naskh design. It has very economical ascenders and descenders, so it doesn't take up a lot of vertical space. We've used it for Lufthansa entertainment system, so this is also quite good on screen. It's a bit quirky, so some like the final ray looks tiny, no, because the descender is not so long. But there's something interesting in the overall design. So it's a little bit quirky, but if you have a client where this kind of thing is acceptable.
Is it much of the Helvetica? So they made it from the Helvetica when he made it?
Yeah, when yeah. So that was his intention, but then when we looked at it, we found that there was too much movement in it for it to be Helvetica, so we paired it with another Latin typeface, but we loved the design so much that we just like, we want it. So it's one of my favorites. It's a really cool design. So, Ihsan Hamwi? Yeah. And here you see it in text. So so it's a modern kind of Naskh, which is really cool. Isra is a kufi, a very condensed kufi. This typeface is made for, or like perfect for logos. You type the word and it looks like a logo immediately. It has the kind of stylized design where you just typeset anything, it looks like a logo. You don't have to, you just pick a color and that's it, you're done. Or put a square around it, and yeah, it's really, really cool. Like, the Latin is not as stylized. So these typefaces that I'm showing, because, and you can see it because they have the Arabic names, they're designed as Arabic, and what we've done is to put a companion Latin that sort of matches, but they're not designed for each other. So that's the difference. That's why the kind of characteristics you find in the Arabic, you're not finding in the Latin. The Latin is like just the support system. So all of our fonts, they include the Latin in the same font file, so you don't have to switch files. And like if you're writing and you have an email address suddenly, we don't want you to go switch to another font. You stay in the same font with the same size. And that's why there needs to be a Latin in there. But in this case, it's supporting Latin rather than a match made in heaven. Yeah, so it's not in the brief. Midan is by a Lebanese designer. Again, so these typefaces, most of them were winners in our Arabic type design contest that we did in 2005. Midan is also one of my favorites. It's also a modern Naskh typeface, also very economical in terms of vertical measures. So this would be quite nice on tickers or use on the web because it doesn't take so much. There's not very deep descenders. This I actually like for web. Because it's almost monolinear in design, so the contrast is not too strong, so it gives a nice effect. So it's quite an interesting design.
What does monolinear mean?
That the thickness of the letter does not go thick and thin. It stays almost the same thickness. And this is how you see it in text. So there's a bit of liveliness to it that is quite charming. Now we go back to my designs, but now this is custom design. So every once in a while, so usually we have clients who come to us and they just license fonts from the website. They don't even talk to us, they just get the font, they go and they use it. But every once in a while, we have typefaces that we've designed specifically for clients because they have special needs that we could not fulfill with our library, or because it's just they want something exclusive to them. So for example, Baraim, which is for Baraim TV, it's part of Al Jazeera network. So I designed this in 2008, I think. Yeah. It's supposed to be kiddie. It's supposed to be blobby and childish. It's for kids the ages 3 to 6. They're not even reading yet or barely. But it's supposed to look like the proper letters, but it's supposed to be childish as well. So that was the point. So when you look at the structure, it's actually quite legible. But then when you set it in text, the overall look, and it's not meant to be a text face, but still the overall look is very haphazard. I had to design like 700 ligatures in order to get this kind of movement, because if they were all at the same level, it looks too stiff. Also, the thicknesses vary between the letters to give it that kind of informality. But I mean, it's typeface for kids, so it's supposed to be playful and childish and fun, and it was quite fun to draw this one as well. This is how you see it on the web, so that's their website. So this is the kind of graphics that sit with it, and that's why it's supposed to be so blobby. And we did not design the logo, so the logo was already there before we came to the project. I usually say this, but okay. So yeah, they wouldn't let me change it. I offered, but it was too late. They had already rendered everything, and so we couldn't. I would have liked to play a little bit more with it. But yeah, so this is what it looks like in use. And I mean, it feels legible, even though everything is up and down and blobby, but it feels very clear. So, and again, the interesting thing here is this still has the Kufi logic, the stacking side by side. This is why I was showing you the calligraphic styles, because we look at the origin of the logic of how things are constructed. We understand it, and then we go do something completely different. But it still looks decent because it's built on a logic that we have already internalized and accepted as a logic for the Arabic script. Deutsche Welle is another TV example. So it's a modification of Jannah, actually. So we've seen this design before. The reason I show it is that we did something really interesting for them, which is work on the logo. So the top part was their existing logo, and this is a new logo. And basically, I mean, you can see, this is the power of typography. Type is the voice that you're speaking with. And in this case, it's a completely different person speaking to us between the top and the bottom, or between the Latin and the Arabic. And it's the same TV station. The fact that they broadcast in Arabic for a few hours a day does not make them a different TV station. So they should have the same identity. They are the same people. We don't deal with schizophrenic clients. Sometimes it sounds like it, but we need a client to be viewed as one entity across the different scripts and languages that they speak in. So the Arabic was not the same style, not the same size, not the same placement, not the same anything. The only thing in common between the Latin and the Arabic was the color, and that was it. So when we designed the new Arabic for them, obviously it did not take as much space, but the design at least brings in the same kind of formality that you have in the Latin. And this is how it is used when they have al-akhbar, and that was it. So this is, I think, the last custom project I'm showing. So this is the typeface that I designed for An-Nahar. Again, one of the perks of speaking in Lebanon, I don't have to explain who An-Nahar is or the story or anything behind it. So it's really cool. So usually I have to go back and say, yes, in 2005. So anyway, so basically, so we were approached by designer Mario Garcia. He is one of the leading newspaper designers worldwide. He was contacted by Naila to redesign An-Nahar completely and to have a new look for An-Nahar and bring it more modern and as an advancement. And I had already worked with Mario before, so the project went like around the globe. So he's based in the US. So the request came from Lebanon to the US. The US came to Germany, and then he and I came to Lebanon together. So and basically he asked me to collaborate with him on the typography of the newspaper. And the newspaper had not been designed for quite a while. It was in need of an uplift. Actually, every newspaper in Lebanon is in need of an uplift desperately. So An-Nahar was just one of them. The good thing is that they had a really good text face that was designed in-house. Their headline typeface was more or less okay, but it still was not looking modern enough. It needed to be fixed. And then we looked and we said, like, so what do we want to do for An-Nahar? And the idea was that and now we get into politics, but basically it was a statement with the concept Ya Jabal ma yahzak rih. And it's nice again that we're in Lebanon, I don't have to explain. So basically that political assassinations are not acceptable as a form of dialogue in any country, and freedom of the press, whether you agree or disagree with their political views, is not acceptable. It's not okay if you disagree with a newspaper to go assassinate its chief editor. That's just not how things work. So it's not okay. They can say whatever they want to say, but we just don't kill people for saying what they believe in. So the freedom of the press needs to be, it's a sanctified. We cannot target that. And the newspaper, the voice of the newspaper needed to be that it will survive in spite of having 2 people in it being assassinated within a year. So that was the concept, that it stays, and Ya Jabal ma yahzak rih. So whatever comes, they will be there. And that was the concept for the typeface. So that was what I had presented to them. It doesn't matter if we agree or disagree with their political stance. And there is a disagreement with every political party in Lebanon because, you guys read the news, obviously. So there's a lot of improvement needed into our political system. So it's very easy to disagree with everyone. So the thing here is that, so what do you do as a typeface designer or any designer in a situation like this? So the typeface needed to be strong. It needed to have a powerful message. And this was translated into how the actual letter forms were drawn. So when we look at the design, it's a very classical headline typeface for a newspaper. It's classical naskh with a strong horizontal baseline. But when you look at the actual curves, you have like a sculptural approach. It's a no-nonsense typeface. It's very strong in how it is drawn. There's a lot of tension in the curves, the way they are disciplined. And this gives it a kind of power and impact on the page. So if you're passing by the newsstand and you look at it, look at the contrast of this bold headline font that is being used for the headlines and the effect it gives for this title page. And that was supposed to do. It captures the attention and it gives very strong contrast. This is the heavy, yeah. Yeah. So we designed 2 weights, bold and heavy. There was no light for the headline. We don't need a light. No. It was only بس للعناوين. So it was just for the headlines. The body copy, they had, like I said, they had a really good typeface. It was called Marwan. It's actually been copied by everybody externally. So AXT Marwan, that is the Marwan for An-Nahar, and it's theirs. So, and that's there. I mean, it was designed by Walid Twaini, so it was an internal design. But it's a really good typeface. It's one of the best Naskhs typefaces on the market still. So it was designed, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that. And it's one of the best existing. By far, it's still the best text face for newspapers in the entire region. So in terms of Arabic text newspapers, Marwan is still the best one. And it was their house typeface. So we didn't touch it. I was like, it's good, leave it. We just make a new headline typeface to give a fresh impression. And what we did, so I worked with Mario on the styles. So like what size do we use the headline and what size do we use for the body copy and what's the supporting typeface for the headers. And all of it is like, there's a word in German, Gesamtkunstwerk, and I studied this here in Lebanon, not in Germany. So it's the total work of art, and this is an approach to design that started in modern architecture and modern art, so 50 years ago or something, where you look at every detail and they all fit together. And this is what typography should be like. You look at every instance of text, whether it is in a newspaper, in a headline, whatever. You look at every instance and you design them together so that they work as a system. And this is what a graphic designer is supposed to do in his job. They look, there is no, oh, it's just a menu, or oh, it's just a, everything is a part, like the little clogs in a clock. They all need to work together. And that's what we did. So we looked at the headline, we looked at the body copy, we looked at the spaces between the lines, the spaces between the columns, all of that we were looking at, and they were all made together. And we also took elements from the body type text face and included that in the headline so that the headline and the body copy fit nicely together. And so, for example, the meme is coming, and the he, this structure is coming from from Marwan. And this was the, so this is the first issue that came out with the redesign. You can see the headline is over here. So this was April 12, 2011. And yes, so we, there's 3 fonts in the house style. You have the Jubran 2005, that's the name of the headline typeface. You have Marwan for the body copy, and then you have Universe Next Arabic, which I had just finished. And we took it and we used it for, like, you have the highlights over here, and then you have highlights over here as well. I don't know if the other, in another picture, yeah, like you can see in the, in here. Yeah, this is Universe. Yeah. So, and you needed to make a set where you bring in something modern to offset the classical style. So the typeface for the headline is very classical in proportion. It's designed in a very strong way, but it's still classical. And then you offset it with a little bit of modern kufi, and then you give it a lot of white space, and then suddenly everything looks very nice. And that's how it was supposed to be. And then even when you look at the spread, you can see how the typeface jumps up. So what we worked on was like the size of the headline and how it relates to the body copy. What is the proportion of different headlines on the same print? You have the hierarchy of level 1, level 2, level 3. So all of these are elements that we need to look at, whether in a newspaper or in a book or in a brochure or on the web. And there was that. So I have just like 5 minutes. How much time? What time is it? 12. 20 minutes? Okay, good. So yeah, so I'm just going to spend like 5 minutes on this. So so in 2007, I started a PhD on Legibility Studies. And the reason was very simple. So I had written a paper as part of my MA about the simplification and script reform in Arabic. There were people who were complaining in the middle of the last century, like, oh, Arabic is too complex, we can't set anything in it, we need to change it. And this was, so there were a lot of proposals. So Saeed Ael had a proposal, somebody else had a proposal. Some people were saying just drop the Arabic script completely and use Latin. At the end of the day, nothing happened. Not with that, the Academy of Arabic Language in Cairo. So nothing came up out of the script reform, call for script reform. But at the same time, the Arabic script was getting typographically simplified, and that was simplified Arabic, and that was what Linotype did. for the newspapers, and that's typefaces that we get in newspapers today. These were born in the 1950s. So at the same time now, we have the technology to typeset very complex styles. So the calligraphic naskh that we see in manuscripts, we are now able to have as a font. So when we look at our typographic heritage, when we're looking at large sets of copy, when we are designing books or educational material or whatever it is, we can use the styles that are very simple, like we have in newspapers. We can use the styles that we usually find in books, and there's a few ligatures here and there, like the lam meme or the meme jin or whatever. Or you can have something very complex, like you would have in the manuscript. So, and you have a choice as a designer to recommend either of these. But you have no idea what to recommend other than your own aesthetic preference, like this looks pretty or this doesn't. But we don't really know which one is actually reading better, which one is easier to read, the one that is very complex or the one that is very simple. So, so what I wanted to do in the PhD is to actually test it out. So I designed a family of typefaces where there's an increasing level of complexity. You have the very simple, and then you have the middle, which is more like book faces, and then you have the classical manuscript style, which is what I call dynamic. And I tested those here in Beirut. So I rented an eye tracker. This is a computer screen with an embedded camera that measures eye movement while people are reading. And I tested with students here in Beirut and did the data analysis. And the typefaces that I was testing, like I said, varied in complexity. So what you see over here in outline would be the simplified Arabic, what you would have in a newspaper. And what you have over here is the kind of swoosh that you would get in a more classical calligraphic style. It would be like in manuscripts. And this is another example. So what you can see here are some of the complex ligatures that we have as part of classical naskh. And this would be the more simplified, where one sits next to each other, and then here they start to jump on top of each other. And at the end of the day, and I'm not going to get too much into it because it keeps us off track, the result is that the simple styles are easier to read. So they take less time for fixations. It doesn't mean that we don't use the complex styles. It just means that in cases where speed is an issue, where we want people to read faster, we need to stay with the simple styles. If we have the time, if it's a poetry book that you can take your time enjoying, and it's a novel, and you don't have to rush through it, then you can go for the more complex styles. But if you're reading something, it's a textbook at school, you need to finish your homework and have dinner. So we need to present material in the simpler forms, because this is how it will be easier for the children to read, and also for us. And I always share the very bad news of how literacy is like in the Middle East when I present this. This was one of the reasons why I was so interested in this, and where we need to make a collective effort to improve things. So other than the dismal literacy rates in the Middle East, where things are improving but not good enough, there are reports that there are not enough education for women in the Middle East. It's not a surprise, but the nasty thing is that it's also for young girls. So if our older generation is not literate is one thing, but if our young kids are not being educated, these are the mothers of the future. This is terrible for the region for many, many reasons. So this is not acceptable. The other thing is that there was another report about how much people read in general. And the numbers are actually a number of pages per year. That was how bad the report was. Like, yes, they read 2 pages per year or 3 pages per year. Or yeah, it's not like 2 books or 3 books per year. The average of reading in the Middle East, not reading, Facebook, that doesn't count, or Twitter. But reading in the Middle East is so catastrophic that the averages are in pages. This is dismal. It's unacceptable. We deserve what happens to us when we don't read. So it cannot be. It just cannot be. So what we need to do is encourage people to read more in any language, English or French or Arabic or whatever it is. But when it comes to Arabic, because this is my field of specialty, this is why I went into legibility studies, because anything that we can do to get people to read more is in the right direction. So, so that was that for the legibility thing. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to show you a couple of websites that are more relevant for web fonts. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask this much
Yes.
earlier on. You presented a slide, I think it was slide 3 or 4, and you showed the Chahine script.
Yes.
And that's interesting to me
Yeah.
And so the primary reason why that font had that shape is that we
Yeah.
used sugarcane pen.
Yeah, yeah, and then it gives you a different shape.
And so it had either thick or very thin lines.
Absolutely.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
And then that type of font was preferred because the teacher, all the students had to like sit around in circles around him,
Yeah.
shape way, and they had to be close enough for them to hit them. So
Ah.
you didn't really master your lines. So the typeface itself.
You can see it from far.
Yeah, you can see. So I have actually a picture here of my own tablet.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like that. I never made the connection to the two.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's, you have to sit close enough to the teacher that hits you if you memorize your lesson.
Nice.
So it's like 1 meter, maybe 2 meters max.
Okay.
And then the font has to be written super fast.
Yeah.
So because you only have this wooden tablet, so you have
Yeah.
to write it in the morning
Okay.
and then recite
Okay.
all throughout the day, and then
Okay.
at night you
Yeah.
basically wash it off.
Okay.
And write something else tomorrow.
Okay.
So the origin of that font probably has to do with the pen type.
I mean, yeah, the
and
style.
speed at which you have to
Absolutely.
trace again.
Absolutely. So I didn't know this because this you don't get in textbooks, but this is cool. Thanks. But yeah, like I was saying, I mean, the styles that we have in Arabic are often coming from the difference in tool. Like the Maghribi is because of the rounded brush. The Thuluth and the Naskh, they cut things differently. And so this is obviously a different tool because the level of contrast is not what you get in the Naskh or in the Thuluth. So it's quite interesting to see when you have a skeletal shape of the letter and you change the tool and you come up with completely new forms. So it would be quite interesting to see if we had, if you had the same structure but written with a ballpoint pen, what would the letter forms look like? And so this,
More time to write because
yeah,
people tend to write really fast.
yeah. Slide, so you can't make curves, so you make very structured geometric shapes. But then the moment you switch onto paper and things are very smooth, then obviously your script becomes very round. And you can try this. If you try to write on a wall, you don't get the same kind of fluidity as you would write on a coated paper. And that, again, is the medium informing the way the letters are shown. So any other questions before we, yes? So like with Nastaliq, the Nastaliq style? Yeah. Yeah. So basically the fonts that I showed, they all support the Farsi language. So you can actually... The Farsi style, yeah, that would be Nastaliq. Yes, Nastaliq. Yeah, so I haven't done one. I'm currently working on something which is sort of an interpretation of Nastaliq. But that is a super, super complex style. So there are people who have designed a Nastaliq, a modern Nastaliq, not modern, like a digital typeface with a proper classical Nastaliq style. So you can find it as a font now. But I haven't done that myself yet. But the one, so I'm working on Palatino Arabic now, and the structure is that of Nastaliq, but with a little bit of a different contrast and slightly different angle. But that would be something that for an Arab audience I would not put on screen. For an Iranian audience or a Pakistani audience, because they're used to more these forms, then maybe if it's a large size, large enough, because there's a level of delicacy in the style that needs size, because if you don't have enough pixels, it's just the thin parts of the letters will be too thick. Yeah. So you need size which is big enough. Thuluth? No. So I'm not very much into classical scripts. So I look at them, I enjoy. Yes. Yeah. Well, no, because I mean I haven't seen a good Thuluth font. If you want good Thuluth, you go to a calligrapher. That's how it is. So I haven't seen any. No, there's a good Rukha. So if you want a classical script, like what you find in manuscripts, there's a good Rukha, there's a good Naskh, and there's a good Nastaliq. They're all from the same person. But I have not seen a good Thuluth. So it's just too complex. So maybe they still need to work on it, but it's one of those complex styles. Yeah.
Related to the calligrapher who writes.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing is, like with Thuluth, you're usually using it for a small headline. So there is the chance that you can, take the time and have a calligrapher write it out for you. But for that, we also still need to have calligraphers who are alive. And that might be difficult in 10, 20 years. Because currently calligraphers are like 60 plus, 70 plus. So if you look at the future, 20 years from now, it will be very hard to find a decent calligrapher in Lebanon. And in the other Arab worlds, it's a little bit better in the Arab countries. But in Lebanon, it's a catastrophe.
In Syria, there's lots of them, but they are not.
Yeah.
They only like الحرفة.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, but that is the job in any case. It's more of an artist rather than somebody who sits and letters all day. But still, it's you still need a younger generation to do that. And I think it would be terrible if we lose this. And I know very few people who are in like our age group who are actually studying calligraphy. Very little. So yeah, it needs to improve. So. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, you need to understand what kind of function you want. If you want something that looks artistic, you need to go to the artist and you get the calligrapher. If you want to type something very quickly and it's for mass production, and then you use a normal typeface. I do prefer that our calligraphers would make the signs for shops more than having the ugly neon signs that we have. So I would still prefer that. So I mean, it's just the people who make the ugly neon signs have not spent time on the design either. So it's an insult to both graphic design and typography. So if they went to a good graphic designer and had somebody use a decent typeface, it would not be a problem. The problem is that they set it on Word, they put a gradient in the background, and then drop shadow, and then an outline on the font, and then maybe, yeah. It's like, but it has to show, but then the guy next to you is doing the same thing. And then all you end up is with a mess. So, yeah.
But you see it on trucks also.
Yeah, the trucks, yeah, absolutely. That's usually in Ruqa and amazing. So, yeah. So let me show you a couple of websites. So who's interested in web fonts? Okay, good. So, so you will be happy about this. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things. Let me sit down. So the fonts that I was showing you, everything I showed, you can have as web fonts, and they will work with, so they will work with every browser, current browser. So we will have no problems on desktops. We cannot have web fonts for SVG format, so iPad, iPhone, we still have to stick with the system fonts. So that's it for Arabic. For Latin, obviously, you can use anything. So, so all of the fonts that we have, you can get here. So this is one of the e-commerce sites of fonts of Monotype, so it's fonts.com. And you have access to our 20,000 fonts. And you can have different levels of, access. But basically, you sign up for the service. You can pick as many fonts. And then you get a line of code that you put in your metadata and create a project on the website. Yeah. So you only put one line of code in the actual code of the website.
You have a low internet speed, take time to make loading.
Yeah, but it's usually like 50K, 80K, and you're loading it. You're not loading it often.
It's not yourself.
Yeah. You will link it to. We're giving it to you, and the service is very stable, so we don't have problems there.
Is there another type of license for web fonts?
Yes.
Because,
Yeah. Basically, so if anybody is interested in like licensing questions, so this is Martin. He's our sales director. So so he will know everything. You can contact him we're here the entire conference, so you can just come up to us and talk. But yeah, you can have, if you need only one specific font, if you want to do self-hosting, all of that, you can come to us, and we have different options. So so it's not a problem. But basically, the easy one is the web font service. So that is one thing that we offer. Another thing that we have as also part of the company. It's called Typecast. So anybody knows Typecast? Okay, so basically Typecast is it's a new how do you call it? It's a new service that we have. We actually bought these guys out earlier this year, no, last year. And basically, you can design in the browser using our web fonts and other people's web fonts as well. So usually what you need to do is put in your specifications into your style sheets, go update, and then check it in the browser. This one, what you can do is just design straight in the browser. And then you can see all of the typographic specifications that you need, the sizes, the fonts, the color, the leading, the spacing, all of that you can design in the browser, and then you can export that style sheet and then have it as reference and then use it for your code later. So, so this would be something cool for web developers and web designers. So if you want to try things out, this would be an easy way to try. And then another thing which is super cool is the web font preview. So this is related to the fonts.com service. And basically what you can do, you can take any website and then have a preview of what this website will look like with a different font. So I'm going to show you a small demo and then we're done. So this is the ArabNet website, okay? Notice the font here and notice the typeface that you use for the text, okay? So I'm just going to copy the URL and I'm just going to say I want to test it here. So what I will get is a preview. It's not the actual website. We're not ruining the website of Arab. No. So this is just a preview. And basically, what you do is you change the headline font. And I'm going to pick something really funny. And I'm going to go down, and then you can see it. So this is now the new font. And you see it live in the site, right? In a preview of the site, not in the actual site itself, obviously. And then you can change the font, the body copy. And so I'm going to pick something. I'm picking stuff that is dramatic so that you see more of a difference. But let's say Aku. And then you can see that the font changed. And the nice thing is that you can minimize this. And then you can toggle. So you can see this is the original. And this is with the web fonts that I tried out. And so if you have a client and you're sitting there in a meeting and you're trying to convince your client to change web fonts or to change to another typeface, you just take this link and then you go live and then you just see them like, oh, you want this typeface? Look at this. If you want another typeface, look at that. And it's also comfortable for you to try out different fonts without touching any line of code. This is just like a preview, and then you can make a snapshot, keep it for reference, implement it for later, but it's a handy tool for you to be able to test things. It works in Arabic. We don't have a lot of Arabic fonts active for the preview, but it's more for Latin. But it's still something handy that would be, I think, a good tool for you guys to keep in mind. And so, are there any questions before we are done? Yes.
Well, you said that every font that you showed us is a web font.
Yes.
Is there something that changes in the web font?
Yes.
Or is it still the same?
No, it changes because different browsers, that we have different font. No, the shape, no. No, the shape is the same, but the actual font file is different. So the font file that if you have a normal license and you're using it on your InDesign or whatever, you need another font for the web. For one, the license is different, but also because different browsers need different font formats. So what we do is actually we produce in different ones. You don't even need to know about this. And then as part of the service, we read that, okay, the user is using Safari on a Mac, therefore they need this font format, and we display it to them. You don't even need to know about this. And we do all the updates and all of that. So that's why the service is quite interesting, because you don't have to worry about browser support, updates, all of that. We do it all on our end. And all you have to do is put this line of code and specify, like, I want this font, and that's it. And you can also sign up for the free version, so you can just test it out. We have like 3,000 fonts that you can test, and they're nice fonts. There's an Helvetica and a Frutiger in there. So, and test it out and play around, and then if you like it, then you can go to the professional level. And, yeah. Any other questions?
How long does it take to make?
It depends. It could be a few weeks or a few months or a few years. Depends how complex and how much time you dedicate and how much experience you have. The first typeface, I went through 150 versions, literally. And Nahar, I had to do it in like 3-4 weeks because we were very short on time. So it could be 1 month sometimes, or it could be faster. Oh, no, sorry, longer. Yes?
One of the most interesting problems these days that the know-how of creating web fonts or let's say Arabic fonts it's like a mystery. You don't find enough resources about how to design new fonts, especially for Arabic.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, he implemented the Amiri font,
Yes. Yeah.
And he have been crazy, like the standards are not really well documented. Because also the browsers are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is still, till this very moment, there is no good references for new people to come. And
Absolutely.
This makes the gap between calligraphers and the font designers very huge, so that you don't really, we need to close this gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you close this gap, you will get better fonts all
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah, definitely. So
I think this should also be part of your...
Yes, and so like, yes, absolutely. So one of my first projects that I did when I joined Linotype was that we organized the conference in Dubai where it was called Kitabat in 2006, where we sat in the same conference, font developers, type designers, and calligraphers, and we had different presentations, and we had nice contact, and I give workshops and lectures regularly. I don't find a lot of interest in this coming from Beirut. So the last time I spoke in Beirut was 2005. So this is something, strangely enough, all the type designers, the Arabic type designers mostly are from Lebanon, but for some reason there's not a lot of conferences here that are interested in hearing about type design. We get a lot of international requests. So I'm flying to Australia to speak about Arabic. It's a bit funny, but they are interested. In the Gulf there is more, like in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. You can go abroad and do an MA in type design if it's at Reading or The Hague, like at Reading where I studied, and you will have people who are helping you. There's not a lot of books, but that is improving. We need more programs teaching, so they have at AUB and LAU, but it's not enough. And type design is a very specialized thing, and you can learn type design on its own and calligraphy on its own, and then merge the two together, sort of.
There are definitely some challenges for Arabic specifically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's fun. And yeah, but if you start with a simple design, like with a Kufi design, it's very easy to draw because they're all sitting side by side, and it's very easy to program. So if you actually sit down and you can teach yourself, because when I went to Reading, there was no one to help me. I had to teach myself everything, and that was 10 years ago. And there was way less online than when you find now. So the situation is definitely improving. That you just need to get to a critical mass where there are enough people teaching this and talking about it, and we're not there yet. But I mean, we try.
And you are actually doing the coding for the font?
Yeah, I do the coding. It's not very complex. Once you learn the basics, don't look for Arabic font design. Look for font design in general, and then you'll know how to do it for Arabic. It's just, and then there's a lot of information about Latin, and to get it to Arabic is just a little bit of extra work. It's not much.
It gets super complex when you start designing like those complex lectures.
Yeah, but there's like 2 people worldwide who can do this anyway. So it's also hard for me.
What is the alternate tool?
FontLab. So I think we're like way over time, but thank you all for the questions. I hope this was interesting. And if you are interested in type design, I'm here for the next 2 days. So come talk to me. And if you're interested in licensing, you talk to Martin. So design questions to me, font questions like licensing stuff to him. But yeah, come talk to me if anybody is interested. Okay? And thank you so much for the invitation also.